Hey, g'day and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan who's living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Now tomorrow we have a couple of games in the 2024 Six Nations competition. The second game is going to be played between Scotland and England at Murrayfield. Going to be a very interesting encounter indeed, because Scotland have had the meat over England in the last few years when it comes to Six Nations rugby. So I'm really looking forward to this game. In this video, I'm going to give you the team selections for both teams and give you my prediction. And I want to hear from you as well in the comments on how you think this one is going to go. So let's get into it right now. I'm really looking forward to this game tomorrow because I think there's going to be a number of things that we can keep our eye on. There's been a couple of interesting changes in both teams, and I want to see whether that's going to have a big impact on the game. Now these two teams are coming into this competition or into this particular game with some pretty interesting results behind them, I feel. That game between Scotland and Wales in the first game in Cardiff was a real nail biter if you're a Scottish fan, but they did get away with it and they ended up getting a win. That second game against France could have also gone Scotland's way, of course, in the last minute, but France held on to win that one, and it was a little bit disappointing, I thought, for Scotland. So they've had a game where they've scraped in, and they've had another one where they've only just lost. So interesting so far for Scotland. In England's perspective, well, that game against Italy wasn't impressive as far as I'm concerned. I think they stuttered their way to a win on that one. Italy coming back at the death knell, of course, and making the score a little bit more respectable. In the game against Wales, well, Wales could have won that one, I thought, as well, but England hung on to that one, and I think it was their defence that really won them that game. So, as I say, going into this game, there's a couple of things to look out for that are going to be really interesting. Is that English defence going to be the downfall of Scotland in this game? And are some of the changes that have been made in each team going to be very interesting to watch as well? So why don't we get into the teams and have a look at both teams that have been selected for this game. How about we start off with England, the visitors to Murrayfield this weekend, and starting off in their back line. Now let's start looking at England's back line, and in their back three, an interesting selection straight up here with fullback Furbank's come in for Freddie Stewart, and I think this is a very interesting selection from Steve Borthwick. Furbank plays for Northampton Saints. He's been playing very well for them, and Borthwick said it's down to that he's been given an opportunity to slot in. I don't think Freddie Stewart's done a whole lot wrong so far in the Six Nations. He could have injected himself a little bit more into the back line, but England haven't been playing that sort of game for him to do that. So I think it's a interesting selection, this one. I'd like to know what you think. Do you think this is a good move from Borthwick putting Furbank in there? And then on the wings for England, we have Daly, of course, and we have Freeman. I think Freeman's been playing pretty well throughout this tournament. Daly has as well. And if these guys get enough ball, and if they're hungry enough to inject themselves into the game, they can make a difference for England. So it's going to be really good to see how this back three go for England this weekend. Moving on to the centre pairing for England this weekend, and we've got Slade at outside centre, and Ollie Lawrence is back at inside centre. A really good move. I like Ollie Lawrence. He's a good punchy second 5'8". He can get up over the gain line, and we need to see him bringing some energy for England if they're going to capitalise on getting through this Scottish defence. So Slade and Lawrence are going to be the centres this weekend for England. And then at number 10 we have George Ford. Of course, he seems to be nailing down that position. He's very reliable, of course, with his boot across the field. He had that 50-22 in the last game. Of course, some people are saying that was a bit fortunate, but at the end of the day he executed, and that's all that counts. In at halfback we've got Danny Kerr. Mitchell's injured, so we've got Kerr coming in. I like Danny Kerr. I think he brings a lot of energy to the halfback role for England, and I think this is a good selection. So I really like this back line, the starting back line for England in this game. I think they've got a lot of potential there, but we seem to be saying that every week about England. Are they going to be able to deliver? That's the key thing. And then taking a look at the reserves, we've got a split of 5-3, three in the backs for England this weekend. We've got Spencer, the halfback, coming in there on the bench. We've got Finn Smith, and we've got Faye Wabasso. So a good bench there for England to come on, potentially game breakers. I like young Finn Smith. I think he's going to be a great potential over the years to come. So the more game time he can get the better for England. So a good backline. Let me know what you think of the English backline this weekend to play Scotland. Looks pretty good to me. Let's see whether they can go out there and execute. We're missing Dingwall out of the English backline this week, and I thought he did play well, but we've got a few good players, of course, in that English backline that haven't been in this team yet. So we're trying out Lawrence and Slade this weekend for England and seeing how they're going. But I think Dingwall's a little bit unfortunate to be missing out this weekend. Now let's move on to the English forwards and have a look at who's going to start for them this weekend again. I think the three in the back row of English forwards pick themselves. We've got Earl at number 8, we've got Underhill, and we've got Root in there as well. They're going to have to step up a bit this weekend because they're up against a good back three for Scotland, and I expect them to be given a bit of a hard time. Ben Earl hasn't been really at that level we saw in the Rugby World Cup. Underhill's been very solid, and Ethan Root's been a standout in a couple of games for England. So they've got the potential there. Can they take it to Scotland in those positions? Moving into the locks, Itoje and Chisholm. Thought they were outplayed by the Welsh forwards last week, particularly by Baird and Jenkins. I think that Itoje and Chisholm need to step up. Of course, Chisholm got a yellow card as well. He was off the field. So discipline is an issue for these two guys, but they're going to have to want to win some set ball for the English in this particular game. Also look for them doing a bit of work in the breakdown area. It's going to be very important this weekend who wins that breakdown battle, and shouldn't just be relying on the back three to be able to do that. So let's watch out for Itoje and Chisholm to see whether they're going to be adding some potential momentum for the English in that tight breakdown situation. Now the front row battle is one I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think it's going to be a really interesting one to watch. The English front row is Cole, Genge and George, and Jamie George, of course, going to be the captain of this English team. So once we get over and have a look at the Scottish front row, we'll be able to compare to see who's going to win this one. But I think it's going to be a really tight battle, and it's going to be one of the key components of the game because it's going to determine who gets that significant ball from the set piece. So expect these three Englishmen to do a good job. And then having a look at the bench for England in the forwards, we've got Dan, Marler, Stewart, Martin and Cunningham South. Very good bench there for England. Cunningham South has really impressed me since he's been coming on in a couple of cameo performances so far in the Six Nations, and I think he's going to be someone that really grows into this English team. So look for those English forwards off the bench to make a difference. Theo, Dan, Joe Marler, of course, and Stewart, all big boys, and Steve Borthwick will be wanting to see their injection into the game having an impact against Scotland. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. So there we go. That's the English team that's going to be playing Scotland tomorrow at Murrayfield. Let me know in the comments what you think of this team. Who are we still missing out of this English team that you'd like to see in there? And what do you think of this change at fullback with Furbank coming in for Freddie Stewart? I'd like to hear your comments on that one. Now let's get over and have a look at the home side and see what changes have been made there for this match against England. Starting off in the backs for Scotland. The Scottish back three, we've got Blair Kinghorn coming back in for this game. I thought Rowe played quite well when he was in the fullback position, but it's good to have Kinghorn back. He's a big lanky guy. He does some really good runs and breaks the line, so it's going to be interesting to see whether he brings that injection in his first game back for Scotland in this year's Six Nations. And then on the wings we've got Steyn and Van der Verve for Scotland, two good wingers who've been playing very well, I think, in this competition so far. As we know, Van der Verve is one of those wingers that can open a game and change a game. He's been playing really well, running off Finn Russell and finding those gaps, and look for him to have a really big game at home in front of the Murrayfield crowd this weekend. Moving on to the centres for Scotland, it's that predictable pairing of Hugh Jones and Simone Tupoloto. Both really good players. I've seen Tupoloto playing really well this year, except for that disciplinary issue he had when he went off in the last game. But we've got to make sure that these two guys are playing really well for Scotland to have a chance, and we need to see them making more breaks. It's one thing I've been a little bit critical, I think, of these two guys. We've seen them big in defence, but we need to see them making a few breaks, and that's what they're really good at in this team. Inside them we've got Finn Russell, of course, and Ben White playing halfback. Russell, of course, the master leader of this team, and when he's having a great game, then Scotland seem to be going forward. In that first half against Wales, of course, in Cardiff, we saw Russell at his very best, masterclass, getting Scotland around the field, but also keeping the scoreboard ticking over. And that's one of the things that Scotland will be wanting to do this weekend. Get off to a good start, put the pressure on England by putting points on the scoreboard, and a lot of that pressure is going to be created by Finn Russell and what he does in the number 10 jersey. So Ben White's been playing well as well in this series so far in the Six Nations, so good to see him back in there. And I think this is a really good Scottish backline. And then having a look at the Scottish bench in the backs, we've got Horn, Healy and Redpath. Of those three guys, I like Redpath the best. I think he brings on a game-changing capability. He's also very, very good in defence, a good young player that's got a lot of potential for the Scottish team. So overall in the backs, I think this is a really strong Scottish backline, probably, except for Darcy Graham, probably their strongest. Let me know what you think in the comments about this Scottish backline in particular. Are they going to be able to do the thing on defence against this England team? But are they going to be able to make those significant breaks, score some tries and keep the points ticking over for Scotland? Okay, moving on to the Scottish forwards for this game, and this is one of the areas that I'm really interested in this game, because I think it's going to be an almighty battle between the Scottish back three and the English back three. Playing for Scotland this weekend in the back three, we have Dempsey, Darge and Ritchie. Good to see these three guys back together again, and expect very big games from them, because if Scotland are going to win this game, these three guys are going to have to be enormous in the breakdown battle, but also in set play, and look for Scotland going long in the line out. I think that's going to be one of their strategies against England this weekend. So Dempsey, Darge and Ritchie back in there in the back three, really, really interesting. Moving on to the locking positions, and we have Gilchrist and we have Cummings in the locks for Scotland. They've played very well so far, getting plenty of ball from the set piece. Their line out needs to be strong. England has probably got a little bit of a question mark over their line out, so look for Gilchrist and Cummings to try and steal a little bit of English ball in the line outs. As I said, I think the front three battle in this game is going to be really, really interesting, and Scotland have selected what I would expect their typical front three. Fagerson, Turner and Stuman coming in for the front three. Going to be really interesting to see how they go up against the English three, so look for some tight technical competition at scrum time. And I think who's going to come out on top of that is going to have a good chance of winning this game, because it's going to be a pivotal area of the game. Okay, let's have a look at the forward reserves for Scotland in this game, and they've got some really good players to come on. Ashman, Hepburn, Miller-Mills, Skinner and Christie. So a good bench there for Scotland. I think Gregor Townsend selected a really good team this weekend. It's good to see Blair Kinghorn back in there for Scotland. I think he's a game changer and going to be really, really solid at the back. What do you think the chances are of Finn Russell giving a lot of high balls early on for Furbank, for England to test him under that high ball and put some early pressure on him? I think that's going to be one of the strategies for this game. So let's get on now and talk about my prediction. What do I think is going to happen? Well, at times I've been impressed by Scotland throughout the Six Nations so far, but they haven't put a comprehensive 80 minutes together, and I think they really need to do that to be able to beat this English team this weekend. I think England's going to try and come back and do something a little bit different with those new players they've got this weekend. They're going to have to go up a level of what they played against Wales, although I thought Wales were tenacious in that game in Twickenham and probably a little bit unlucky not to win it. But I think this is going to be a real battle, this game. I do see Scotland narrowly taking it, but it could go either way. I think it depends how much of those Scottish backs get involved in the game and whether they're able to get out to a lead early on. We've seen them be fairly good front runners in this tournament. They held on to that game no matter what you said against Wales in Cardiff, and they were chasing the game a little bit more against France because of that try by Bielri that he scored brilliantly in that game. So my expectation is that if Scotland are winning by half-time, they're going to hold on to this game. But I think England might get some momentum in this game, and it could be close. So I'm picking a game that could have 2 or 3 points in it at the end. And at this stage, I'm falling on the side of Scotland. So if we have a look at the community page on my channel so far, the votes have gone in favour of Scotland narrowly as well. And I think that's the way that a lot of us are thinking, that it's going to be a tight case, but Scotland might just get over the line. Now, despite what the two coaches say to the media, I think Gregor Townsend's going to be probably a little bit disappointed so far in the way Scotland's been playing. Once again, on paper, they seem to have the talent, but they haven't brought it for an 80-minute period yet in the Six Nations. Is this going to be the weekend where they put 80 minutes together? Because if it is, they can beat this English team and they can do it quite well. But if they give England a sniff in this game like they did against France and like they did against Wales, then they could be in for trouble. So I think this is one of the things that Gregor Townsend's going to really pump into these guys before they head out onto Murrayfield tomorrow, is to make sure that their focus is there for both halves. And I think at half-time, if Scotland is in the lead and they have some good healthy points on the board, he's going to tell them to keep going for it. Don't close up shop and do not try and defend a lead. Scotland are obviously not good at that. We've seen that so far in this tournament. On the other side of the sheds, when it comes to Steve Borthwick, again, he says he's impressed with this way this English team is building. They've had 2 wins on the trot, albeit not in comprehensive style, but he'll be wanting to build onto that, and having players like Furbank and Ollie Lawrence in the back line could add a little bit of magic that England have been missing so far. But this game's going to be won up front, and it's going to be won at the breakdown, and it's going to be won at the set piece. Whoever gets good quality ball is going to go on and have a chance of winning this game. Don't be surprised if we see discipline as a factor in the game as well. We've already seen throughout this campaign that England have had a couple of disciplinary issues. If they have that against Scotland at Murrayfield and Scotland are able to capitalise on those points at the time, it could be the thing that makes the difference in this game. But because of the type of battle that I'm expecting in this game, Scotland are also going to open themselves to some disciplinary issues. So let's make sure that both teams keep all 15 players on the field. That's going to be one of the key messages, I think, that goes out to both camps. So there we go. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Scotland are going to get there in the end. It's going to be narrow. It's going to be tight. But if Scotland can get a lead early on, I think it's going to give them the momentum, particularly at home in front of their Murrayfield fans. So let me know what you think in the comments. Are you one of those on the community page that have ticked Scotland for the win? Or do you think England, with the changes they've made in this team and with the strong bench that they have, are they going to be able to run Scotland down in the second half if Scotland are in the lead? Really love to hear your comments on that. Those are my thoughts on the game tomorrow between Scotland and England, going to be played at Murrayfield in front of a packed stadium, I'm sure. A delighted Scottish fans, but also many English fans making the trip up north to watch their team play, and hoping that we can see the English team that we're all wanting to see in the Six Nations competition. Now, if you like my content, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and drop your comments. I always like reading your comments. There's a lot of good rugby knowledge and intelligence out there on all sides of the fence, so I love reading all your comments. Make sure you keep going with those. I'll be back after the game with a full review, of course, highlighting some of the players that caught my eye, as well as some of the ones that caught my eye for the wrong reasons as well. So make sure you check out my review of the game. I'll be back also about the other games this weekend. We've got that interesting one between France and Italy, and of course we get underway tomorrow with Ireland playing Wales in Dublin. It's going to be an epic encounter, I'm sure of that. Okay, time for me to say adios from Mexico. Until next time, stay safe, stay well everyone, and it's bye for now.